Unreal.
We are up and running. We're online, everything.
Call the meeting to order. Pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Commissioner Springer is absent today. Otherwise, the rest are here. Approve agenda. Motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on to staff updates. I don't see any staff present today.
Mr. Chair, can I ask Michael a question under staff updates?
Either that or administrator update. It's up.
Let's do that. Better
Okay.
yet.
No staff updates. Administrative update.
Two quick updates. I've been talking to the board about the DOC lease with for CJC space for the probation agents. I got a copy of that lease this morning from the DOC, or it could have been yesterday. Just wanted to make sure each of you had a copy. It'll be coming in front of the board next Tuesday. It basically continues under the same terms and conditions that we currently operate under, with a 25-cent raise on each year. The only real difference with this contract versus the last is that it's a 5-year contract with an option for 5 years more. I gave a copy to the county attorney's office for their review, but it will be on the board agenda for next Tuesday. I'm sorry, the 17th. The other update is that we had union negotiations, or I should say a mediation session with 3 of the AFSCME groups. We've reached a tentative agreement. That'll be on the board agenda for the 17th as well, where we can discuss that agreement.
My question has to do, and maybe Carrie Kelly is more appropriate, but last time we met with Jim Nordstrom regarding the Bowser, he was trying to get the Part 2 investigation from Bowser. I'm just wondering if that's available for commissioners yet?
Since that's a subject of a pending litigation and was discussed during a closed session, I don't know that it's appropriate to discuss it in an open meeting at this point. But I can follow up with Mr. Nordstrom.
Okay, and Part 2 of that also was he was going to check on some things with MCIT?
And again, since this is an open session.
Right, but I mean, if you check with him, and maybe we can talk about it.
Well, and I'll tell you, my other concern is that since that closed session, there was a letter written by, I believe, Ms. Porcher to the Attorney General's office that contained some information that appeared to me to come out of that closed session. So it may be more appropriate to follow up with the board chair as opposed to the board as a whole, because I don't know where that information came from, but it shouldn't be coming out of a closed session.
Okay. Can you share specifically what you're concerned about?
Not in an open session,
Okay.
Commissioner.
Okay.
That's all I had.
Okay.
Thank you.
Citizen involvement. Julie Porcher.
Julie Porcher, taxpayer, Waukesha County. Kind of forgot some of my papers at home, so I'll be winging it a little bit today. But I did make a documents request from Board of Water and Soil Resources, so that I have part of the ongoing investigation and notes that were taken.
Thank you.
No matter how many I printed off. One of the things I wanted to talk about today was that with this ongoing discussion about paying the grant money back, there was discussion about not being a delegated feedlot county. And I noticed on the map that most of the southeastern counties were in the green. They had chosen to, so that made me think, well, there must be a reason or an advantage that people choose to be locally administered. And I know I have some support on the board. Rich stated at the meeting that he hopes the grants will come through for the farmers to have the programs. and he wants there to be money available for the programs here as there are in the surrounding locations. So that's good. I spoke with someone from the PCA, and they said that what I see as part of the downside if we don't administer locally, the PCA cannot accept money on behalf of a county. And so there'll be funds that we're not eligible for and money we're missing out on if we administer through the PCA. And the PCA, unlike the county, has enforcement abilities, including fines. And so I just see the farmers as losing. If there's less money available to them, and then if they can't come up to code, there's more enforcement power through the PCA, including that it could be fined. So our farmers will lose out, I think, if we don't try to get things straight and administer at a local level. Part of the, moving on to the, some of the things I found in this file review that the Board of Water and Soil did after meeting with the Soil and Water Conservation District and then with the county, that brought concerns for me was that I feel like if people say something in this room, if they're the commissioner, they should, it should be true and it should carry weight. And so it bothered me that when, I think Chairman Springer did the KAAL interview and assured people that with this project, even though we're having trouble with the financing, the projects were completed well and right and protected us. And what I found in these minutes is this was one reference to milk house waste that was supposed to be fixed, and there's no evidence that the Board of Water and Soil has that states it was corrected. So they had Pete Fryer, who's an engineer, visited the landowners to verify if the projects were done correct. He verified the milk house waste was not fixed. The project, this is the Walrick feedlot, did not have any engineering plans. And so the state is saying, do we give the money when there's no documentation whether it was done correctly? And that's a very valid question. So I just really feel misled when somebody's on camera and saying, these projects, there's some money questions, but they were completed correctly, when in fact they weren't. So I guess one of the, I don't know if you can even rank them, another red flag, I've been discouraged that there's been, to me, no investigating that I've seen, no charges brought, no prosecuting of people who signed off on the vouchers. Troy Gackmeyer signed off, and Jennifer George signed off, and department heads sign off, and their signatures seem meaningless if they haven't checked the work. So one thing that happened was, or one thing I read in here was Popple Consulting Firm, which is the very same address, the very same phone number as Osseo Construction out of Wisconsin. Popple Consulting Firm, Wisconsin. Troy also worked for this company, and this is from what Chuck, 16-year board member of the Soil and Water Conservation District, said. He worked for the consulting firm the same time as these violations. So I just don't know how you can take a county contract or taxpayer monies and hire a firm when you're also, that's conflict of interest, when you're also being paid by the firm you've just hired. So there's plenty here to look at. And so then when the invoice comes in, it says invoice from Osseo Construction out of Wisconsin for $52,500. The invoice is vague. There's just so many smoking guns here and things to be looked into. I want you to protect the taxpayer and go forward with whatever powers you have, that these will get addressed, that charges will be brought, that people will be questioned, because there's a lot in these reports. So please read through them. And lastly, if Wabasha County was not allowed to just pay a fine or arrange some kind of payment over time, and which is out the window at this point, it sounds like. Michael, you had stated you were reluctant to open the books if the only solution is to pay fines, because the county does not want to open up the books and the county board may need to have more discussions. Part of the reason I would write a letter to the Attorney General is to get the taxpayer trust back, to get credibility back. We need to open the books. Somebody needs to look at them, because right now, myself and others, there's no trust. And if these tax dollars weren't tracked, what other tax dollars aren't tracked? Why did the Board of Water and Soil Resources have to ask if there's segregation of duties? Why did they have to say, what are your internal controls? A county budget is in the millions now. Those things should be in place and working.
Julie, what are these documents from exactly? They're minutes from a meeting? Is that what I'm looking at?
When I did a documents request for the further investigation, because the investigative cost went from $4,500 to over $9,000 now, so an additional $5,000. They said they didn't have a report in the form that they had the first time. What I got was minutes from the meeting, and I had emails. I had lots of emails. So that, yes, I mean.
I've never, I don't know, maybe other commissioners, I've never seen these documents before, so I thank you.
And
This
all I
is
had-
very interesting.
All I had to do was make a phone call, give them my address. So that's part of what I feel like our attorney and our and law enforcement, they have investigative powers. They can do so much more than I can, and I can find this with an email or a phone call. So I feel very, very let down by Wabasha County's current government. Thank you.
Thank you. Bev?
Hello. I know that it's getting old and it's very difficult to listen to the constant concerns of social media, but I'm bringing it back up because of an incident that happened on the 26th of this month. And I'm sorry that Mr. Springer isn't here. I'm Bev Snow. I live in Wabasha County. I am a taxpayer, and Chairman Donald Springer is my commissioner. We've had a lot of social media discussion, and I know that Mr. Plant has clearly said in other meetings that our policies cover these, and that he's aware that they're being followed. And here today I present to you information on Don Springer's social media, Facebook, where he is suggesting that Jay First is having a relationship with Deb Roshan to get an article in the paper, and he thinks it's funny. As a citizen who is supposed to respect their commissioner, I don't think it's funny. I think it's pretty sad that one commissioner could do such a thing to another commissioner on Facebook. I'm asking that Mr. Springer gives a public apology not only to Deb, but also to Jay First. This was very harmful to Jay. He's a married man. And to put this out here. And also to the residents of this great county. I expect a lot more from the commissioner, and I expect a lot more from the chairperson. I brought with me, if anybody's interested, I don't have enough copies because this came up late last night. Jeff Johnson, who is currently running and is the endorsed candidate for the GOP for governor, one of his staff made a mistake and put something out on his Facebook yesterday that was very derogatory towards another running, was Marty Seifert. Jeff had nothing to do with it, but because it was on his Facebook, he made a public apology. Mr. Springer is saying that he had nothing to do with this, even though it was on his Facebook page. He wasn't aware of it. Even though it's a comment made by Mr. Springer, he wasn't aware of it. It was on his Facebook page, and after being called on it, it was removed. He wasn't aware of it. This is just to show you that a good politician, a good person for the people, can clearly say, I may not have had anything to do with this, but I can make an apology. I can say, it was wrong. Because you should be in control of your own social media. You know, so, in asking for that apology, I'm also saying, as a chair of this commission, and he has done this consistently, and I have come forward more than once on this, that there might be some consideration that we need a different chair, and that Mr. Springer should maybe step down as the chair and allow Mr. Robbie to step up to the chair, because if he cannot do professionally good comments about other people on this commission, then how am I going to, or anybody else going to respect decisions that are made at this table? So I regret having to come back up here again, but as long as Mr. Springer chooses to use Facebook to do this, I will be back. Thank you.
That is it for the public forum. Unfinished business?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Bev, you stole my thunder. This has to do with social media. We've talked about it before. And Bev has the same handout I had, partly anyway. Mr. Springer talked about favors that I would be providing Jay First at the Motel 6 because of the newspaper story that many of you maybe read. It was a couple weeks ago on a Saturday. I read a rather large article that Jay had authored. And I just want to be on the record, and I see Jay has come into our boardroom. I did not want to participate in this story, and I think Jay might validate that statement, but when he first approached me, I turned him down. And my comment to him was that I was pretty discouraged with the way the media has behaved in southeast Minnesota, our local newspapers, his newspaper. And I felt that my family and I had been beat up enough, and I wasn't going to get into another he said, she said in the newspaper. And he encouraged me to think about it, and I went home, and coincidence or as luck would have it, my parents were actually at my home. Because what's happened over the last 3.5 years has affected my parents deeply, as well as my immediate family. And I told them about what Jay First had proposed, and said that I really didn't want to go through this again. The last thing that my family needed was to have their face or their name in the newspaper again. And my parents said, no, you need to do this. The lies and the things that people have said about you, the truth needs to come out, and we want you to do this. And so with hesitation, I got in touch with Jay, and I said, okay, I will participate. And there was, I promise you, there was never, ever any inappropriate anything that went on between Jay and I. We met one time in Caribou, one time in my workplace, and I think all the rest of the interviews were done via phone or email. So when something like this comes out and suggests that there was something inappropriate done, that's very hurtful. And I'm sorry that Commissioner Springer is not here today, because I'm not saying this in his absence because it's a free pass. I intended on saying this to his face, and I'm sorry I don't have that opportunity. Perhaps it will, sometime in the future I can do that. We've talked about social media in the past. I've brought several concerns about social media to this board. And this newspaper story, while I know Jay First printed an impartial, objective story and tried to tell both sides, there were blatant lies. I will refer to them as blatant lies said in there by Commissioner Springer. And if you look at page 3 of your handout, he says, Springer said in the interview last month that he wasn't opposed to the coordinator approach, but that the previous board didn't give her the authority. They didn't know what an administrator or a coordinator should do. The board eliminated the administrator, but then didn't delegate many responsibilities of the job. There was no direct direction to the staff. Regarding the coordinator, Springer also said Deb handpicked the young lady to do what she wanted done. That is absolutely false, incorrect, misleading, and a blatant lie. The next page in your handout is the minutes from the board meeting of May 8th, 2012, and I've placed an arrow to draw your attention that the board passed a resolution that the board chair, who at the time was Commissioner Harms, would appoint an additional commissioner to help with the interviews and final selections of the coordinator. The next page in your handout is from the minutes of May 22nd, 2012. It's Resolution 094. And up at the top, it lays out that all applications will go to Laura Krajewski. They did not go to Deb Russian. And then they were turned into the board chairman. And he appointed somebody to go through the application pool and select interviews. And it tells how candidates will be ranked. And so on. It explains the process. Your next page is the board minutes from June 12th, 2012. This is where Commissioner Wabi was appointed to the interview committee for county coordinator. Deb Russian wasn't appointed to that. It was Mike Wabi, Dave Harms, Laura Krajewski, and I think Michael Plant, you were involved in that process as well. Because the next page is an email sent to commissioners on June 20th, 2012. It's from Michael Plant to all of us. And it has the applicants for coordinator attached. And this is when he first introduced who we were going to be interviewing. This is the first I ever saw Bridget Huffman's name. I did not handpick her, nor could have I handpicked her if I wanted to. I was completely removed from the process. Your next page in your handout is a June 21st email where Michael Plant is telling us that one of the applicants pulled out from the process, which I think left us 2 people. So I was not involved in that process. These are public minutes. It's not rocket science to find out how the process really worked. You just have to look up the public records. For him to say I handpicked her is disrespectful to me. It's certainly disrespectful to Bridget Huffman. She received this job based on her own merits, not because I handpicked her. And regarding his statement that she didn't know what she was supposed to be doing, I've also included from our August 14th, 2012 minutes, the job description Bridget Huffman was provided. Now, when I read this, I think it lays out pretty detailed what the expectations are in her role as coordinator. So to say she didn't know what to do, she had a whole job description. I can't speak for other commissioners, but not once did she ever come to me and say, I'm confused on what my role is here. Maybe she said that to someone else. I'm not aware of it. And then, of course, the last is that she was clerk to the board, which she did, and she performed that function very well. Now, back to the social media. People, we have to do something. And I know that in the past when I brought this up, I've been told that we have policies in place, such as harassment and different things like that, that kind of cover us in this situation. Well, let me tell you, our policies haven't done squat for me. They haven't done anything for Jay First. They haven't done anything for Mrs. First, for Mr. Russian, for our families. This behavior continues. It's unrelenting. Each time it becomes more vicious, more intentional. Commissioners, we are colleagues on this board, and I would ask each of you personally right now, and I hope you will answer me, are you okay with this behavior to continue? Rich, is this okay with you?
I'll stick to what I said before. I personally don't pay much attention to Facebook at all. And if you don't like it, if I don't like something, I don't read it. So it's just what I have to stick to. If you don't like what you see, and if you don't like a book you pulled off a shelf, you wouldn't read the book. Why do you read this stuff if it just irritates you so much? If you don't like it, don't read it. I don't understand it. I know there's stuff written in the newspapers and stuff about me too, and that's why I don't pay much attention to newspapers, because you don't like it, don't read it.
Commissioner Wabi?
I don't approve of it, but here again, this is the first I've seen of this. I don't have a Facebook, I don't get into that. And I do agree, we are a team up here, and I think we need to all get along, even though we don't agree on things.
Right.
But we do need to get along, and yeah, I think you need to talk to Commissioner Springer.
I have asked him, Commissioner Wabi, here publicly, on more than one occasion, to please stop this behavior.
Yeah.
And here we go again. Disrespect, Mr. First, I wasn't totally crazy about his story. I mean, it wasn't something, had I wrote it, I would have wrote it different, but I respect him for what he wrote. And to make something dirty and ugly and sexist out of that, Commissioner Harms, are you,
No, this is actually reprehensible, that chairman of the board has a position of more authority. He's the one that the press goes to. I think if you've given that responsibility, you have a lot more obligation to play it straight with everybody. I don't have Facebook either. I'm going to say that like Rich Hall. I have for my family. I don't write on it, period. I wished I would have never signed up for it, but I got it. But I get emails from people, and I get phone calls from people asking what's going on Facebook. And then I look, and I see this crap, and it is crap. We're in an adult world. We aren't kids anymore. And we need, if we're going to be in a position of authority and responsibility, then I think it's time that every single one act like adults. I kind of agree with what Ms. Snow said about because there is a bully pulpit, that maybe Commissioner Springer should step down. That might be an appropriate response. Sad to say that, but that might be the only solution to this.
well, and in the spirit of full disclosure, after the last social media discussion, I was contacted that, or it was assumed that I had filed a formal complaint about it. My intuition told me that something was cooking. As you can imagine, trust is not something I have a lot of for some of the players down here. And I will call them players because I believe they're active participants in a lot of this behavior. When I was contacted, I was then contacted by an outside attorney asking me when we could interview as part of my complaint. And I asked him to see a copy of my complaint. Well, he couldn't provide me one, and he said, well, it was determined by the county attorney's office and administration that I had filed a complaint because of the social media. And I smelled a rat, and my intuition said, don't participate in this. My intuition was telling me that this outside investigation, or this other attorney who was going to look into this matter, was hired to provide a controlled outcome. And what that would mean, or what I anticipated would happen, is this outside attorney would be hired to provide a report that says there is no problem with social media, or Commissioner Russian has not, or Commissioner Springer or Commissioner Russian, there's nothing wrong there. He hasn't crossed any lines. Our county staff have not crossed any lines. And in essence, that result of that investigation would be made public, and then it would give Mr. Springer and whoever a platform to once again beat up on me and say, see, you're complaining, you're making mountains out of molehills. There is no social media bullying going on here. There is no sexist behavior going on here. So I did not participate in that investigation, and it closed or ended, whatever you want to call it. So I did a data request on the documents that this attorney had collected. And it was clear from the documents that I collected that what I would interpret to be collusion was going on between administration and his office. I have never participated in an independent investigation where the outside investigator is saying things in emails like, I will make this look formal, in quotations. Here's what I intend to say to Commissioner Russian. Can you wordsmith it? Make sure it's the way you want it to read. Let's keep this under $4,800 so that we don't need a board resolution. Now, those aren't exact words, but that's my interpretation of the sentence. I don't know if this board, and I'm sure taxpayers are not aware, that they paid money for this, thousands of dollars, and I don't think the final bill is in yet. In what I believe was just another under-the-radar, passive-aggressive attempt to conduct a bogus investigation with a controlled outcome, bring it to this board and say, well, look at, here's Deb Russian, there she goes again. And then Commissioner Springer and his supporters could get on social media and they could say, boy, she's a horrible person. And I'm sick and tired of it. I'm sick and tired of this. I would love an outside investigation. A truly independent, objective, outside investigator who I approve of as well, not just county government. Because let's face it, what kind of a position would Michael Plant be in if he did a true outside investigation and they said, yes, this is bullying, this is harassment, this is sexist behavior? Would he be able to bring a resolution to this board to bring action against Don Springer when he knows the board majority holds his future as administrator? That's pretty intimidating. It's hard to take something to your boss who has control over your employment and say, you've been a bad boy. I don't look for that to happen. And I mean, you know disrespect, but that's a difficult position for anyone to be in. What's gone on here is wrong, probably illegal. If we had a truly independent outside investigation that doesn't involve the players from county government, perhaps we'd get to the bottom of this. But on top of all that, it's disrespectful to me, but more so to the people who pay the taxes in this county. This is chauvinistic behavior. It's disrespectful. It's childish. It's narcissism. It's ridiculous. And yet it goes on and on, week after week, and I am sick and tired of it. To come to this boardroom and face this monkey business, this dog and pony show, it takes every ounce of spirit I have. And yet it gets condoned, and I don't understand. What's wrong with you people? If this was your wife or your daughter, you'd want it to stop and to say, well, just don't read it. That doesn't make it go away, Rich. Everybody has seen this. There are rumors going around Lake City that my husband has left me. That's hurtful. I'm a human being. When are you all going to start to realize that and treat me like that? This isn't fun. And maybe you can lay your head on your pillow at night and feel good about this. But it's sick. It's twisted. And nobody is doing anything about it. I have to come here and defend my honor week after week and call out the behavior, and then I get attacked? I'm sick of it. And that's why I'm not filing for re-election. 4 more years of this would put me in the General's Hospital in St. Mary's. If I don't end up there after this. That's all I have to say. I've learned a lot these last 3 years, 4 years. And what I've learned makes my stomach sick. And the people don't know what's going on. They just think Deb Russian's a horrible person. They don't know what's going on behind the scenes and the constant attacks and bogus investigations and tying up data requests and the constant game playing that I put up with day after day, week after week. But that's what your dollars are paying for, people. You should be appalled. That's all I have to say.
Well, moving on here, the consent agenda, claims, meal vouchers, minutes. Looking for a motion? Motion by Commissioner Hall. I will second that. Any discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to action discussion items, zoning. Kevin.
Good morning. Good morning, President, Zoning Administrator. Before you, you have a resolution to approve a cabin submitted by Wayne Evers. The Planning Commission conducted a public hearing on May 19th on the matter and basically found no concerns with it and voted 4-0 to forward it on with a recommendation of approval.
Mr. Chair, I move on
I'll second it.
14-0150.
Motion was made and seconded. Any discussion on that?
I know where the cabin's going, I know the Everses, I don't see any problem with what's happening here. They've been to Kevin from the minute they started discussing it. They've talked to me about it for quite a while before they even went to Kevin. I don't see any problem with it.
Okay, any more discussion?
Mr. Chair, a question for Carrie Kelly. I'm related to this family. Would it be appropriate to abstain?
It would be appropriate to abstain.
Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And one abstain.
Dr. Jeffrey.
Hey, folks.
Good morning.
Thank you for the opportunity to come before you. As you know, I've been your medical examiner for the last, 17, 18 months now. And boy, it's been quite an educational experience. It's really been interesting. I've learned an awful lot. However, my life is a bit too busy. And what I want to do is just announce my intention to resign at a point when it's convenient for the board. I will continue in the duties and obligations until a satisfactory solution or alternative it comes available. And on that note, I have one. My dad used to always tell me, anybody can whine and complain, come back and talk to me when you have a solution. So it's my intention to give you that solution. There is an organization called the Southern Minnesota Regional Medical Examiner's Office. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it or not. Dodge, Fillmore, Goodhue, Winona, and Houston counties are all part of it, along with Olmsted County where it's headquartered out of. It's run by Dr. Ross Reichard and Peter Lynn at the Mayo Clinic. It's an independent organization, and they have a consortium of the different counties that they provide the medical examiner services for. It is an all-inclusive, complete, they do everything. The death scene investigation, the handling of the paperwork, the autopsies, the transportation of the bodies, the entire package is included within that. Part of my reluctance, I'll be honest, in recommending that was I was a little concerned that, right now the responsibilities are spread between me, as the medical examiner that kind of oversees it and takes care of a lot of the paperwork, occasionally does participate in some of the death scene investigation. But the Waukesha County Sheriff and other peace officers obviously handle a bulk of that work. And, I don't know, it's kind of part of their job responsibilities, I guess. I don't know, what the impact necessarily would be financially, taking that piece from the officers and then having, the Semco take care of it. But I do know that at about $1,500 an autopsy, I am rather conservative in how many autopsies I request. I notice that I'm ordering about 60 to 70% the number that was ordered in previous years, in part because I'm very conscientious about the expense. Sometimes I worry a little bit that I'm missing some of that. I will tell you that the consortium autopsies a lot. Probably would do about twice as many as I've requested, and would be included, in that as well. If that's something that would interest the board, I'd be happy to come back at a later date, give you more information, even have Dr. Reichard come down here to address the board directly to fill in some more details. The cost is, I think it's $2.83 per capita would be the total cost. So with our 2010 census, I think that works out to somewhere around $63,000. If you compare that to probably $30,000 worth of autopsy fees that the county pays, I don't even know what my salary is. The amount that goes to the police officers and others, in my opinion, I think it probably would be more cost effective for the board to actually go with the consortium. And I honestly, not to belittle myself, but I honestly think they do a better job than I do. So that's all I have to say. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me, call me, whatever you wish, and I'd be happy to talk about it further.
Do you have a timeline on what you're looking to move out of the position? If you're trying to move it quickly, it's certainly...
No, it's whenever it works out. Like I said, I'm having fun. It's just, it's too much for me to do with everything else I've got going on in life. So it's whenever it would be, convenient and advantageous for everybody to move forward. If it's, in a few weeks, if it's in a few months, if it's in a year or two, whatever works.
So we can put this on our 5-year plan?
Well, that's true. Any other questions?
Yeah, it'd be nice to get them together and talk some prices, some concrete numbers with the capita rate and all that stuff. Yeah.
I'll pull together the facts and figures for the board so you know all the costs.
Okay.
Yeah, if you would want to get a hold of me,
I can do that.
You can certainly get some more information. I do have, and I actually did get, before I presented it to you, I wanted to make sure that they were up to speed, that they had the staffing and manpower necessary, and I've received assurances that they would be very happy to have Wabasha County join the other groups, and they believe that they could be up to staffing within a matter of a month of our making a decision.
I did talk to one of the deputies just the other day, and he spoke very highly of them and also of yourself. And he did make that known that it would be simpler. Well, I didn't realize, he didn't spill that out, that they would be doing part of his job too, so.
Yeah, and this is a side, and maybe, Mr. Thomp, you could speak to this more professionally, but many places in the country feel it's a conflict of interest to have law enforcement do death scene investigations. Now, whether, I don't think there's any, well, I shouldn't say I think, I know there's no legal prohibition for it. But if you think about it, one thing I have discovered, it's really easy to commit murder in this county. But I think that's true nationwide.
Yeah.
So, I think that having an independent organization that really has no political or legal or any other ties to the process really just kind of adds that extra layer of insulation as well, which I think would be beneficial. But I think the bottom line is simply, I think you would get a better service probably if you consider all the ancillaries at a lower overall cost to the county. Anything else?
Interesting.
Thank you, board. I appreciate your time.
Yeah,
and
thanks.
Feel free to contact me at any point.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you.
Blaine, the communications facility use agreement.
Morning, Commissioners. Blaine Hance, Wabasha County PSAP Dispatch Supervisor. Presenting this resolution for communication facility use agreement for the Alma radio tower. Since we did the narrow banding and microwave for sirens project, we need an agreement with Alma because we have equipment there. So we also have other agreements with Lake City, Zumwalt Falls, and with Oil or Plainview area.
All right then. Well, $300 a year. Resolution 151. What are your wishes,
We
board?
have a motion.
I'll second.
Motion is made and seconded. Is there any more discussion for Blaine? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thanks, Blaine.
Thank you.
The last item on the agenda is the county's feedlot delegation. As we discussed at one of the past board meetings, this is coming in front of the board due to the fact that we haven't received funding for the feedlot program since late 2012, I believe December of 2012, because of the NRBG grant funds being withheld. The amount of that funding equates to approximately $45,500 that we would normally be receiving to administer the program. We haven't received those funds since that time. This was a decision or a discussion for the county board on whether or not we wanted to continue to front those costs. We could return it to the state and obviously save the money that we're expending on that. Just as a point of clarification, if the board is looking to keep the feedlot program in county, there have been some discussions with staff that there may be additional staffing needs that the zoning office would need to keep the program running. So if the board does decide to keep this local, and there are benefits of keeping it local, and some of those were outlined earlier, there probably will be additional costs in the future as well that the board should be ready to face at some point. I did send a letter off to the MPCA and also to the Board of Water and Soil Resources informing them that the board would be making this decision. I did not receive any contact back from that, so I'm not sure what their position is on it, whether or not they're okay with it going back. Not that they have a whole lot of choice in the matter, but I just didn't receive any feedback whatsoever on that. So I wish that wasn't the case, but that's all I can report on that.
Well, what are your wishes, board?
Well, I'll express my wishes, or I'll express my opinion, but I live in an entirely, I have no farms in my area. So and keep that in mind when I express it. Is the money gonna cover the position? $45,479.
Probably not.
Probably not. So where's the money gonna come from?
It would have to be from levy dollars.
From Okay,
Yeah, you're required to also have a 70% match, so on those 45,000, we would have to provide roughly $30,000 in match for that, for a position.
okay.
And we've been doing that all these years, correct?
Correct.
Okay, now having said that and heard that, I think we need to, I understand the benefit of having somebody local for the farmers. The big question for me is, can we afford it? With everything else going on, can we afford it?
I guess not without this 45,000. I mean, the reasons for holding it back are,
Those have been documented. That this is related to their feedlot grant issue from the
Right.
Clean Water Fund of
Right.
2011. So until that situation is clarified, I would encourage the board to budget as if it's not going to receive that funding. It's kind of the same thing we did with the local government aid when that was going up and down. We received a lot of feedback from some of our legislators saying that you should probably budget assuming that you're not going to receive any funds, and if you get any, you should be happy with that. It's kind of what I would encourage the board to do here. The best case scenario is, yes, we get some of this funding back. My understanding, the funds that have been withheld have a 3-year window on them. So if there was a chance that this could get resolved quickly, there's a chance that we could get some of those funds back. But with the pace that this has gone to this point, I wouldn't anticipate receiving that funding soon.
In my dilemma, you know, it's ultimately a board decision, but the feedback program, you know, you do have Bowser and you do, who's more or less overseeing the grant, and you have MPCA who is overseeing the actual feedlot implementation or feedlot rules being implemented, and PCA still expects that we're going to adhere to all of those requirements. You know, the last 2 years, you know, for me, it's been more of a learning experience as to what the program entails, and you know, reluctant to hire somebody during that time because I didn't know what it would all entail and if it actually warranted. You know, at this point, it's been that PCA has, you know, come to us and said, yes, there are all these requirements you are supposed to adhere to, and just looking at it, I do not have the time to fulfill those requirements. So that's my dilemma, if the county board, you know, elects to keep delegated, that, you know, we would have to have somebody in that position to keep MPCA satisfied with our program.
We don't want to get into the same situation that we currently find ourselves, or that we had a couple of years ago. So I think without having somebody dedicated to that program, it'd be pretty hard to run it, or somebody that's sole focus was looking at that. Additionally, you know, these grant funds that have been withheld are also pinching other resources for farmers as well. I don't think I'm letting the cat out of the bag by saying that the Soil and Water Conservation District is also having some budget issues related to these funds being withheld. Of the approximately 93,900 that are being withheld overall in the grant, about 26,000 of that, if I'm not mistaken, goes fairly directly to the Soil and Water Conservation District. It goes through the county, which then passes it through to the Soil and Water Conservation District. So this is having a significant impact not only on our budget, but on the budget of other organizations as well.
Okay, if we go and turn it back to the state, will that money be released to the Soil and Water District?
I doubt it. I don't have anything official that says yes or no on that, but I would doubt that.
So the state has really leveraged themselves in a pretty good spot, haven't they?
Depends on how you look at it. The first few years or I shouldn't say first few years, when this first came to light, the state seemed very flexible on trying to find some kind of agreement. I would say that in the more recent past, that position has changed. So I'm not sure what has caused that, but there have been some changes.
They have and they haven't leveraged themselves into a spot. They're gonna end up with another job to do is what they're gonna end up with, because if we aren't going to get paid for it, let's face it, we can't do it. So, you know, you can take that either way, I guess, you know, so how many, this is my thoughts on this, yeah. We can turn this back over to them, but I'm going to guess that in a few years they're going to be back down here because they're going to realize that they can't do the job at their level that we can do at our level down here. And they're going to be back down here asking us to take it back. I don't know what their proposition will be, but it's going to take them, you know, sometime to figure out that, hey, we can't do all this up here at our level either. We just can't. So my guess is you're going to see it come back to us sooner or later. It may not be for a couple of years, but because, you know, they can't handle it. It's obvious they can't handle it.
You want to come up here so we can,
Sure. I just
for
have
the,
a quick question.
for the video here?
I would like to know, or just want the board to research to find out if we don't get these monies, because MPCA can't accept them on behalf of the county, does any of it affect not just even the farmers, but water being our best natural resource that draws in tourism dollars too for our boating, fishing, canoeing? Will any of it hold back monies that we might be eligible for cleaning up Lake Zumbro, for dredging money, or for, I'd like that, just put that out there to research that. Are we gonna miss out on money that way? So it'll be the farmers and tourism.
My understanding is the only money that is being withheld is the NRBG grant. Nothing has been relayed to me that I'm aware of
Yes.
that would indicate that any other grant funds are being would be withheld, but I can't say that with 100%
That's what I
certainty.
want research, the eligibility for future things.
That's all that's ever been mentioned in any of the meetings that I've ever attended, so.
Well,
You know-
it's been pretty farm related, I think, but I just want to think a little broader and cover more area.
Well, other than SWCD salary, I think some of Darren's salary comes out of that too, correct?
Yes, it does.
3,500 goes to shoreland management, which is one of the county programs, I
For
believe.
zoning.
Yep.
That's
And
what
then,
we utilize that.
and then the 18,600 for subsurface sewage treatment, that is to offset
Yeah.
Darren's salary. So, yes, this impacts a number of different positions within the county.
So that money then would disappear. We would not have that 3,000 for
Shoreline.
shoreline
No,
management.
if we returned the program to the state, we'd be giving up the delegated funds for the feedlot. But the other funds still have not been released, so they wouldn't be coming regardless of whether or not we had it or not. If we kept the feedlot program local, we still may not be receiving those funds. Until there's some kind of resolution to this matter, it's kind of conjecture. I couldn't give you a concrete answer of what they will or will not do with those funds.
The only thought that crossed my mind is, let's say we give this back, okay? And let's say it takes 2 years to clean up this mess, this fine or whatever. But we've been operating, as we are now, this program without the money. Is that essentially like saying, hey, you know, this is $80,000, $90,000 that you haven't paid us over the last 2 years? Take that off our fine if we end up paying the fine, you know what I mean? We still been operating, let's say we do continue. You follow what I'm saying, Kevin?
Some of this information has been relayed, well, all of that information, that same kind of logic has been given to the Board of Water and Soil Resources and other individuals. So I think they're aware of that potential, and to this point, I don't think they've shown any interest in it or have not agreed with that logic.
Is the county showing any interest in pursuing the individuals and holding them accountable, or using the county insurance trust, who, you know, when you have a dishonest employee, they're covered, insured for a certain amount?
I think this was discussed at the beginning of the meeting when Ms. Russian brought it up. That was a subject of a closed meeting, closed session with the board, so we're not gonna venture down that road.
That's great, I just want to know the questions being asked and that avenues being looked at instead of taking levy dollars that an insurance company.
I think it's fair to say that every avenue that could be looked at is being looked at.
If we do give this back to the state, I know we've talked about this before, we can take it back again after the matter is settled with the,
I would have to defer to the county attorney's office to look at the statute, but my understanding is yes, we could get that program back, but I don't want to give you a concrete answer
Right.
on that.
because I mean, that would, you know, if we gave it back to the state until this other mess, whatever you want to call it, is we have closure to that, you know, then we could maybe re-up it again and start fresh, and we'll have, I mean, at that point, we're gonna know what that other issue cost us or them. And we can, then we'll have concrete numbers to evaluate, you know, do we wanna re-delegate, I guess.
I believe the county has operated in good faith this entire time. We've continued to operate this program for the last year and a half, fully understanding that we may not, or that we weren't getting those funds. They certainly informed us that they're going to withhold those grants, and we continued to operate the program with the hopes that at some point this would be taken care of, or that the grant funding would be released. It hasn't happened to this point, and as was being mentioned, you come to a point on whether or not you can continue to afford to operate that program without those funds. I don't think I am kind of being the bearer of bad news, but I believe all the commissioners know that our budget forecast for the next cycle, it's going to need some work. So we're looking to save funds wherever we can. Unfortunately, this is one of the programs that we can return to the state, and that could save us some staff time as well, and could alleviate having to hire additional staff. I kind of look at this as being similar to the sanitarian position that we had at in the public health department, where they withheld, or they were going to withhold some funding unless we entered into that delegation agreement, which would have increased the cost to the county by approximately $30,000. We all wanted to provide good service to our local business owners and restaurants, but it wasn't financially feasible. We would have had to bring on additional staff there, and the board made the hard decision to return that to the state. In a lot of ways, I think these are very similar situations, except for this has obviously some additional baggage attached to it.
Go ahead.
Just one last comment, because I come at things from more the environmental side, is what I see in budgets, city, state, whatever, county, they can swing from year to year and things can get better and it turns around. And if a lapse in this program causes contamination, a stream doesn't clean up so fast. So I just hope that we're keeping the environment in mind. And like I said, Wabasha County doesn't have the medical mecca like Olmsted has, or Cornell like Austin, or the university system like Winona. And if we mess up our water, I mean, that's hurting more. It's the farmers and then the tourism dollars, so.
And I agree with you on that, but now saying that, the only thing that this delegation requires us to do is to carry out the feedlot administrative rules. If we return it to the state is going to be required to follow the exact same administrative rules. So hypothetically, or not hypothetically, realistically, there shouldn't be any kind of drop-off. Now saying that, I don't know how much time they'll dedicate to that particular, or to Wabasha County, but they should be held to the same standards that Wabasha County was.
It'd be the same program, just administered by the state.
Correct.
Commissioner Harms?
That was one of the points I was going to question.
in looking at the delegation agreements, the counties that have delegated back, and you think about Cook County, Lake County, and St. Louis County, those are where the boundary waters are. That's on Lake Superior, obviously, and they all returned it back to the state. And this isn't necessarily concrete evidence that there haven't been problems. Maybe there have been, but I would assume that they would take their natural beauty, their water, into just as much consideration as we do, because yes, the Mississippi River is one of our bloodlines for tourism. So, but I haven't heard anything reported in those areas that would lead me to believe that they're not doing an adequate job.
And you gotta remember too that the feedlot rules and any type of environmental contamination are kind of two separate issues. If there is say a fish kill, PCA feedlot staff would be involved somewhat, but it also goes to DNR warden and some of the PCA, the rapid response team, and they're able to take enforcement action. So, it's kind of two separate. The feedlot program is more of the permitting process, to make sure that people are compliant. But if there's an actual issue, then it kind of kicks over into a different realm.
Okay, once again, what are your thoughts here?
Chair, I would move on 152 reluctantly. I still think we could, I think this is probably a program that would be better down at the county level, but financially, I think with the financial state of Wabasha County in mind, I would say let it go back to the state at this time.
Mr. Chair, I'd second that motion.
Any discussion?
I would like it put back on the agenda when, after we get this other matter resolved and there's closure to that. I'd like to revisit this then, and, if we vote to dissolve it or give it back to the state, I would like to bring it back and discuss it after the other legal issue is resolved, I guess. So that we need to have that discussion after we know what the other mess cost us.
Yeah.
And I agree with that statement, and I'd like to see us doing it locally versus the
Yeah.
state. And then if we need that part-time staff or what have you to administer this, so be it. Maybe in conjunction with SWCD.
Well, it would have to be more than part-time staff. Just the workload that is there. Just this morning, we got an email from PCA saying they only got 285 registrations when I know we put in 460. So it's that type of staff time to go back and see what is the discrepancy between our numbers and their numbers. And just, during audits, they're saying at one time there were 800 feedlots that were registered in this county. Nobody has gone out to verify why those feedlots, have not registered. Every day we get feedlots coming in, registering, even though we sent out multiple notices to these people and, we've had it in the paper. It seems that when they go to FSA for financing, FSA is asking, did you register? No, I didn't. So then they come and register to us. Every single day it seems like we have a new one. So it's going to take some staff time to get word out and to get things up to where they need to be to meet PCA. Otherwise, PCA, I was here about a month ago, saying PCA was going to cut our funding by 12% because of 2 missed inspections. And, it's that constant having to be vigilant on it to make sure that we're meeting those 70-20 rules. So.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thanks, Kevin. Commissioner reports. Commissioner Harms.
I had no meetings between last week and this week. And if you want to clean it up quick, I have no additional concerns either.
Commissioner Eschen?
Ditto for me, neither.
I had a mediation with the union, the ASME group, the three, right?
Correct.
3 groups. Yep, and then I touched on that. That's all I had.
I had a meeting on this NIGB grant with the SWCD people and talking about, they wanted to know basically what we needed to know when they come to present for our budget. They were because they're going to probably need some money without this grant, and they wanted to know what we wanted to know to get it. So yes, we met with them, and that's all I had between now and this board meeting. And I have no commissioner concerns at this time.
Okay, neither do I. District 9 meeting, do we need to recess? I don't know, is anybody going?
That's the 9th in Casson.
Correct, Monday
I
morning.
am going.
I plan on going.
I plan on doing.
Okay, so then we will
Recess.
recess to that at 8 or 9 a.m., whatever time.
And our next board meeting here is at 3 p.m. on the 17th?
That's correct. We also have the Board of Appeals and Equalization at 5:30 that night as well, so it'll be a little bit longer meeting, but the meeting does start at 3 p.m. on June 17th.
Okay. So I move we recess to the AMC district meeting.
Is there a second to that?
You have a second.
Oh,
Any more discussion? Could you come to the front, please? I've got 5:30 as Board of Equalization, is that correct?
Correct.
I have one question before you adjourn today, and that's, I want to know if the social media incident with Commissioner Springer is going to be addressed. Simple yes or no or something.
Personnel policies are private and confidential matters. I'm not going to have any kind of comment on that.
So you're saying it will be addressed?
I'm saying that it's a personnel matter and that those are treated confidentially, and that's how I'm going to handle that.
So you can't say yes or no?
I'm not going to make a comment on that one way or another. It's a personnel matter.
Okay. And I would like to agree with Bev Snow. I would like to see, excuse my voice, I would like to see Commissioner Springer step down this chair.
Okay, there was a motion by Commissioner Russian and a second by
Commissioner Hall?
Paul.
Yes.
If there's nothing else before us, all those in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We are finished.
Michael, would you give this to Deb Koenig, please? Sure. It's a copy of the South Country Health Audit Report.
I can do that.
She likes to have a copy of that.
Mike. Thanks, Gary.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I have a question.